Hello, GFE family. Welcome. My name is Celine Coggins. I'm the Executive Director here at Grantmakers for Education. My pronouns are she and her, and I am in Los Angeles on Tongva land. I wish all of you were with us here live. We're coming to you from a beautiful facility, the Skirball Cultural Center, a facility dedicated to Jewish heritage and American democratic ideals. It fits perfectly with our conference theme, a vision for the future of learning and justice. So welcome. This is our 25th annual conference. Wow. Amidst our continued distancing, there are things that are important to celebrate as best we can collectively. One is this conference. In good times and bad, through many seasons of education reform, and 2 years of an ongoing pandemic, you all have said the show must go on. You've helped us to plan, you've submitted session proposals, and you've sponsored this conference. This network and this conference is an incredible testament to all of you. In fact, in the Things to Celebrate category, we took a look back at our records. Our first members came together in 1996 and 97. There were 26 foundations that joined in that initial year or so. 25 years later, every single one is still a member of GFE. I think that's remarkable. I was a first-year teacher when GFE started. When I think about that time with my teacher hat on, I love that idea of philanthropy coming together to help my students and me. And here we are, a quarter century later. The need for funder collaboration around critical supports for learners is even greater than it's ever been. We, as a network, have actually grown during the pandemic. We need each other. Thank you for making all of what this network is. It's durable, it's worthwhile, it's an asset to you and your peers. I want to offer a couple of reflections on this past year before we launch into our main events. We're not where we expected to be. I expected to be hugging Kerry Washington in 5 minutes. I think back ruefully to the spring, when all of us were so deeply engaged in planning for this school year to be a transformative moment for public education, with the pandemic behind us. And it's not. Districts are still having to focus on testing and quarantining for COVID. Educators are exhausted, and yet still having to engage the public in red herring issues like whether they should lose pay for requiring kids to wear masks, or pushing back against those who don't want our schools to teach about race and systemic racism. That makes our work harder. Our inclination is to look to the future, but we serve people and institutions who are struggling to keep their heads above water in the day-to-day. We offer funding, but at a time when federal dollars dwarf even the largest philanthropic investments. We learn best when we are proximate, but we are mostly still relegated to a Zoom existence. The work in schools and post-secondary institutions is hard right now. Our work is hard right now too, and it's hard to do well. But I see you, and I'm constantly grateful and impressed. Every single person in this network has continued to keep their foot on the gas. I see you making pivots in your investments, trusting your grantees as they make necessary shifts, asking less of them in reporting and giving them more freedom. I see you taking this time to learn, especially on issues of race and bias and inclusion. It's something that we've been focusing on as a staff at GFE as well. And I see you, because so many of you ask for my help, advocating for your grantees, especially newer ones, and those where leaders of color are taking the reins for the first time. We love getting to be a platform for voices that were often missing from the conversation and missing from access to capital. So thank you. As I close my reflections on where we are as a community right now, as we launch into this work today together, I want to leave you with my intention for the conference. This is what's weighing heavily on my heart, and this is the lens through which I'll be filtering what I learn over these next 2 weeks of conference sessions. This week, the CDC shared research showing that over the first 15 months of the pandemic, this doesn't even include the past few months, 120 US children lost a parent or primary caregiver to COVID. 120,000 children. More than half of those children are Black or Hispanic. So these are the kids that we should be thinking about as we go forward here. So many people, so many young people are facing remarkably challenging learning circumstances. Inequity is still widening, and justice feels elusive. The need is great, but our capacity to help, especially when we work together, is also great. So again, thank you for staying the course on behalf of young people. All right, so I'd like to offer a couple of highlights on the day. So we've got about 6 hours of programming today. Today is our big day. We've got keynotes with Kerry Washington and with Dina Simmons. We've got a case study of the Oregon Community Foundation's efforts focusing on Black boys. We've got 2 workshops with the best people in the country to help us get really tactical and an on-the-ground sense of what's happening in K-12 and post-secondary education and where funders are needed most. And then, every business day through October 22nd, join us daily for 5 hours of breakout sessions across 5 different learning strands. Once the conference is through, we've got some pretty cool things on the horizon at GFE. We're finally coming to the end of a strategic planning process. We're doing a brand refresh and a whole new website. So those are some of our coming attractions. Okay. I'd like to offer some thank yous. This conference would not be possible, this special 25th anniversary conference, even under these compromised circumstances, would not be possible without our sponsors. Thank you all for hanging in there in this second pandemic year. You all know we tried to pull this off in person, and it unfortunately couldn't work out. I want to pay particular attention to Ascendium, who was our largest sponsor. I also want to turn to our planning committee members. These are folks who are members who volunteered their time to help us put on a conference. They were with us through all of the decision making and pivots around, should we do a viewing party? Should we keep it small? Ultimately, should we make the decision to go pretty much all virtual? And so I'm very grateful to all of them. And last, I just want to thank my GFE team who has worked tirelessly, and our partners at the Balcom Group that we couldn't do this work without. I also want to note that today you're going to be seeing some speakers live here at the Skirball Cultural Center, and some are going to be remote, so you'll probably be able to pick that up, and that's just fine. All right. All right. Now I have a very exciting introduction to make. For those of you who don't know her, Kerry Washington is an Emmy-winning actor, director, producer, and lifelong activist. She has been deeply engaged in election and democracy protection work over the past several years, serving as co-chair of Mrs. Obama's When We All Vote campaign and launching a behind-the-scenes initiative called Influence Change to partner influencers and high-impact nonprofit organizers to increase voter turnout and protect voting rights. In partnership with the Movement Voter Project, Kerry also recently launched a cohort to support and provide resources to 10 grassroots organizations that are helping to build more inclusive democracy. Tram Nguyen from the New Virginia Majority is joining Kerry today to talk about that work. Kerry also serves as co-chair of the Black Voices for Black Justice Fund, and we'll be hearing more about that later in the program. With that, I'd like to welcome Kerry. Thank you for being here.